Welcome to the SciManDan podcast, the place where science and conspiracy collide. It's episode 21. I know I said I'm going to stop saying the episodes, but I'm used to it now, so I'm going to do it. Yes, everyone, do not worry. He joins me once again, the pin-up guy for inquisitive cats everywhere. It's Catz. Welcome, buddy.
Hello. How are you doing?
I missed your blooming thing, didn't I? Do you know what? I had the volume down low because my son was messing around with it earlier, playing low. So I put the volume down. So we missed half your jingle. Sorry about that, mate.
Oh no, it's the thing is, like, I listen to it so often every day. It's one of those things that when I'm feeling a little bit down, I've got it on my phone. I play it. It gets me going. So I've heard it plenty of times.
I was going to say you've downloaded it. This is to all those people that thought there was never a jingle for you. There was people saying there's no jingle. He's making it up. There you go. It's there. So. Yes.
It's my ringtone now.
Awesome. So this week we're doing something slightly different, aren't we? We've had many guests that are experts in their field and were very much on the side of science. But this week our guest is slightly different. He's here to try and tell us why the moon landing never took place. He has 5 pictures to prove it as well as other bits and pieces. So without further ado, I give you Karl. Welcome and thank you for joining us. How are you doing, Karl?
Fine, and thank you, Dan and Catz, for having me. Yes, just want to say that I also want to sort of learn a little bit from yourselves.
Okay.
And so it's basically just sharing 5 of the moon landing photos and sort of getting an opinion. But I must say that I've written 3 books, and the dyslexia code, that took me 6 months of research. The Hellspring code, another 6 months. And then the universe code took me 7 years.
Wow.
It's a massive topic. For the moon landings, I've only spent a day and a half, say 12 hours on it.
Okay.
I've done 2 further podcasts before this. But to be honest with you, once I looked at it even for a day, I just got a completely fishy feeling about it. But there are other reasons that I'll discuss later on after the 5 photos, why the moon landing for me, because my main drive is to make the world a better place,
sure,
is an important item.
Okay, that's completely fair enough. I think we're all in agreement there. I think we all want to make the world a better place. And just to point this out, this won't be a full debate. It's Karl bringing forward his evidence. It's Catz and I discussing it and maybe giving some opinions and avenues of research off the back of it. So it won't be in the style of a debate that you normally know. So, Karl, what was it that first got you interested in looking at the moon landing?
About 3 years ago, I just decided to look at it, and I looked at it for about a day, and I was absolutely flabbergasted at what I saw. So it wasn't for a particular reason or anything like that.
Okay. So I mean, was it just out of curiosity that time, or was it like you've heard things from people and you thought I might better look into it? Or
yes, I heard it on various sort of places. People that actually had said that they didn't believe it took place, and I just thought, let me investigate it for a day, and I did. And I was there's most probably 20 things we can discuss today. I sort of just picked 5 photos.
Yeah.
But it's the further information that's actually the hard sort of stuff. But, just listening to a schoolgirl asking Armstrong, why have we gone back after 50 years kind of thing, it just doesn't make sense. So a lot of the things in my 3 books, so I've got a website now called lightsurfers.me.
Yes.
lightsurfers.me, and I've got 12 topics that I've picked, and this is one of the 12, and all of them have got a slant of making the world a better place. And perhaps if I can just mention it at this point in time, so I'm Christian, but I believe that so Hinduism and Buddhism is all about reincarnation. And I've got proof of that reincarnation was taken out of the Old and New Testament. And the Quran is actually a highly scientific document. Muslims haven't looked for it. If you go to a search engine, it's all there. And if you believe in reincarnation, then what you do is there's a cycle of life.
Okay.
And you come to Earth, and Earth turns out to be hell from my research. I just want to say, as I mentioned, research for 7 years. I had 1 million words after 7 years of my research notes.
Wow.
And then it took me 6 months of just sitting down 17 hours a day, getting rid of 2/3. And then I chucked the 1/3 into 21 chapters, and I got rid of a half because it duplicated. But 70 to 80% left was from the spirit world that some of your audience will and others will definitely query.
Sure.
But it's, again, the things that make sense. But my main goal, as I mentioned, is, well, actually my main goal is peace. And I believe if the 5 main religions can, which make up 75% of humanity, can relax through truth, through the scriptures, then we can start with world peace. But it's in reincarnation, you come to Earth, which turns out to be hell, and you have life lessons. You actually decide before you come in. I studied at the College of Psychic Studies in London, and one of my tutors could actually remember before she came in. There's very few people that can do that. You sit with a committee, they always call it the committee of 12, and you can take on any mission. And if it's too big, they say, maybe it's too big, blah, blah, blah. This is all in the spirit world. And that's why when you wake up, when you not wake up, when a baby is born, the first breath it takes is when your soul actually enters your body. This is all information from the spirit world. Now, then you have to wake up your missions. And that's why a lot of people are always constantly searching, especially when you have midlife crises and stuff, because they know they haven't woken up their missions. And then if you stuff up, kill people, do this, do that, fraud, all these things, then when you pass over, you've got to come and do your life lessons again. And that's really what karma is about, bad karma. Now, how does it link to the moon landing?
Okay, before you do that, I've got a couple of questions. I don't know if you've got any, Catz, but I think Catz will agree with me. We definitely don't argue on your mission. I mean, I'm completely behind that. But what would you say to someone like me who's not religious, who thinks that life on Earth is a beautiful thing, it's got to be appreciated, and it is it's the simplicity and the beauty of it is something to behold? What would you say to me if I hold that opinion?
I would say it's fine. It's like the Communist Party in China. You have to be atheist to be a Communist Party member.
Okay.
But they persecuting, I've got a topic on why we should stop buying Chinese products. And but they persecuting 25% of their population, which is mainly Buddhist, then Christians, and only then the Muslims, which is currently talked about. And it's, so everyone's got their view. But I just want to say to you that in 7 years, I wanted to sort of find out what's what. I would invite you to read my book, The Universe Code book, because it's not a coincidence that the science behind it is huge.
Okay. Kat, have you got anything, Catz, you want to add to that?
No, other than, like I say, I appreciate the sentiment behind what you're trying to do. And yeah, I think it's great. That's it, really. Yeah. And I'd never want to argue with somebody on anything that was faith-based, because ultimately, that's not, I can't prove or disprove the existence of any sort of, the two marry themselves well for me, science and religion, so good luck to you.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is 75% of humanity or something like that believe, well, let me put you this way. Out of the 75% of humanity, I think, is made up of the 5 main religions. So predominantly, people believe. I don't know the exact percentage.
I think you're in the ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah. So therefore, my drive is world peace. So it's the truth of the 5 main religions will make the main 5 main religions relax, and then we can have world peace. So that's actually, funny enough, got nothing to do with whether you're atheist or not. It's the 5 main religions basically fighting each other, which is the big issue.
Yeah, I think I can agree on that. Absolutely. I mean, you add up the death toll for the religious wars and that through history, and you can see that it's vastly superior to any death toll of any wars we've had recently.
Yeah.
Or were there any other conspiracy theories that you subscribe to, or I mean, I know you don't think the moon landing is a conspiracy theory. Is there anything that would be called a conspiracy theory that you subscribe to other than the moon landing?
Yeah, I don't like conspiracy because I would prefer to call it a truth theory.
Okay.
Because I don't want to conspire against anyone or something like that. There are. I understand in a week's time you're going to have someone that believes in the moon landing. That's a scientist. So obviously, I've heard what a lot of them say, and then I've heard photo experts that says the moon landing could never take place. And so to me, it's something that I've done 2 podcasts, which is on Light Surface of Me, and I've sent those off, well, actually, my website, and I said, click on that number, to the City of New York, the prosecuting office there, just literally a week ago,
right,
and asked them to take NASA to court in New York City, because the only way this is going to be resolved is through experts sitting in a court with a jury, because you've got 2 sides, and then they both are passionate and both have got their views, and you really need, like the first photo we're going to discuss, which I'll get to it, you're immediately going to say, the one side said, this is footage from that NASA gave, and the other side says, well, this is superimposed. So until it goes to court, we really cannot resolve the matter.
One of my next questions was going to be, how do you feel about NASA today? But I think you've half answered that.
I feel okay about NASA today, but they've got a problem from NASA 50 years ago.
Okay.
And they are still NASA, so they actually have to clean up the mess, because it's not only discussing the moon landing. There's a history which we're obviously going to discuss today, with how it started, with who ran NASA 50 years ago. But just before, if I can just finish on that reincarnation point.
Sure, yeah.
The importance of all of this is that people have karma, but countries also have karma. So the US as a country, UK has karma, the US as a country. Now, this is all information from the spirit world. And the US cannot be the leader of the free world unless, in my view, I'm just saying my view, this is a really fishy situation, this moon landing. And I go with my gut feel, which I've discovered, and I've got reasons why gut feel is far more important than the mind, that this is really fishy situation. Now, so NASA needs to clean up its act, and they've got a big problem coming, in my view. This is obviously my view.
Yeah.
With them wanting to go back in 24 to the moon. And also now, we'll discuss one of the video clips, they're now going to Mars. There's now things starting to come out where they've got serious problems because they're going to be caught out, in my view. So I know I can communicate with the spirit world. The spirit world have also said to me the moon landing is a fake. So to me, it's great, because I know in the next 3 to 4 years, if we don't even go to court, it's all going to be exposed.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you mentioned karma there briefly. We've got an expression in the UK called swings and roundabouts. Don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So swings and roundabouts. So what would you say if someone said, "Oh yeah, karma's a thing, but it's all swings and roundabouts. Everyone gets good luck, bad luck. Good things happen to them, bad things happen to them. It just evens itself out throughout a lifetime."
Well, if you believe in reincarnation, you've got different lifetimes. But the problem is, if you do a bad deed in this lifetime, if you believe in reincarnation, then you've got to come back and redo that lifetime.
Okay.
The whole purpose is to make the world, the universe evolve. If you believe in spirituality, the whole purpose is to make the world grow and evolve. And you're not part of that. What you just said comes a lot also, but I do believe in yin and yang.
Okay.
Scientists know for every negative there's a positive. So you need both sides. We're discussing 2 sides of the thing. You do need both sides, but you need to evolve over time.
Okay. And so what you're saying is if you complete your mission, then you aren't reincarnated.
No, you are reincarnated again.
Okay.
That you can move on to becoming a higher spiritual being.
Okay.
Because you've got life lessons. Everything has got a purpose. We're not just here by accident.
And is anyone ever aware of their mission, or is it consciously aware?
No.
Okay.
So this is the issue. You've got to wake up your own mission. Now, with me, it happened when I lost everything in the Irish subprime property crisis. Well, the US subprime crisis in August 2007. It only really hit the UK in 2008, and that woke me up when I lost everything. I started researching the mind, and then spiritually things started happening. But its mission is, and the spirit will use the name mission specifically, and it's something that you need to wake up.
Okay. Any questions on that, Catz, before we move on to the moon landing stuff?
No, that makes sense. I'm eager to see some of these images now, though. That would be looking forward to this.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to kick us off then, Karl? What have you got first?
Okay. So if I just go into share mode.
Yes.
So I've got need to go in there. So I've got here. So first of all, I'm using a climate-friendly. I don't know your views on climate change, but a climate-friendly browser.
Okay.
So I'm mistake.
Nice. I didn't know about that.
ecosia.org. Okay, so I've put in C on rock moon landing, but it will, whatever you put, Bing, Google, it will be the same. And then I put in images, and there you can see. So I've already discussed that. You've got the C on it.
Okay, for the podcast listeners only who aren't watching the channel, we've got it's quite a well picture. It's the rock with the little C in the top left hand corner. Catz, any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I've seen that before, and you can look at all sorts of, in my opinion, you can look at all sorts of images and make out things that look similar to certain things and whatnot. To me, it is a mark on the rock from that angle, lit up from that angle, appears to be a C. What I find interesting about this, I don't think it is a C, but I think from that angle, what I find interesting about this, if you look at the shadow, the way that the shadow is going to the left of that rock,
yeah,
and you can see the C shape on the rock, it looks like actually there's a little ridge on the rock that is casting its own shadow in that same direction that gives the impression of a C. I don't think that's a pen mark. Okay. I think if it was illuminated from the other side, we wouldn't see that. So yeah, I agree. It does look like a C, but I'm doubtful on that.
I'm of a slight different opinion. So Karl, I'm sure you're aware that picture is blown up from a larger picture, isn't it? That rock.
Yeah.
And when you look at the actual hard image of the original picture, there's no C on that rock. So what I want to know is, how does that C get on that rock from the blown up image? If we take the actual image that was taken by the NASA astronauts, there's no C on it.
So what one of these photos would you say is the original? Are you saying that one there?
If you go back to the top row.
Yes.
And there you go. Next one along on the right. There you go. So there's the full image, and then the cropped, blown up image is the one with the C on.
Well, as a non-expert, I would just say that's a blown up thing. So you can't see the C on the smaller one because it's just smaller. It's just eyesight issue. Okay.
That's one argument, I guess. I guess if we looked into that properly, we got the high definition version of it, we could possibly zoom in and have a look.
I agree. That's what one should do.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that argument sort of before. The only argument I've heard is that, so you've brought in two sort of separate arguments.
Yeah.
And this is why we need to get the experts in. The only argument I've heard so far is that from the people who said moon landings taking place, is that the C was superimposed afterwards. So there's different things. To me, if it's proven that these are NASA footage and that is that small rock blown up, and it is on that small rock, that needs to be proven, then it's a C. It's not something that could by miraculously have just looks like a C.
If indeed it is from the blown up, from the full proper HD image, you can see it, then there's definitely something weird about that. If not, I would say that something's happened between the full HD image to the cropped blown up image. Something's happened in that process of the sea going on there.
Yeah.
That's what
So
I would
this is why
hypothesize.
This
You
is
can
why
actually see a YouTube video on the second row of what you've got on the screen that does seem to say that one there that says no, that seems to imply the same thing, that actually on the original there is no sea. I wonder if that actually goes into I mean, I've not looked at that, but I wonder if that goes into analysing it a bit deeper.
Possibly.
Yeah. So, but it comes back to the same point. You need two experts that sits on both sides, because both sides have got sort of arguments. Could we go to the second one?
Sure. Yep. Let's move on.
Okay. So I've put in, for those on auditory, shadows, parallel moon landing, and then I click on images. Okay. So I'm just saying what I've now learned in the last sort of podcast as well.
Sure.
Is and just speaking to people on that's on auditory. If shadows are different angles and it's taken from a photo from a person,
yes,
it doesn't have to be parallel. So that I understand.
Okay.
But if a photo, and I'm just going to look for one here now, is at a right angle. So, for instance. Okay, I could click on that one, but let me just get another one. So if we click on that one now, that people cannot see, at a right angle, okay, the one is slightly above the other person. So I need to actually pick another one, because those two shadows are not parallel. Now the sun is coming from just one direction.
Okay.
So those lines, if they're next to each other on the same height, so that's actually a bad one. I just need to pick one where people, okay, there's one. So they've superimposed that light on it. So there's two guys, according to the people said didn't take place, actual NASA footage, and they're standing next to each other, the same height, and it's rectangle. It's it's not taken from a person's body.
Sure.
So those shadows must be parallel, surely.
What do you think, Catz? Anything on that one?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, can you scroll up, please, Karl, to the top? Because I just keep scrolling to right to the top.
Yes.
There we go.
That's right.
So I think so that one, you're hovering your mouse over there now, we have the wooden post, and I've seen that one before in relation to this argument, and I have looked at this before for a video I made. Now, I'm not much of a photographer, but I did look at a lot of people talking about photography and seeing exactly this effect. We can see those stumps in the ground on that image you've got for us, and they're all being lit by the sun. And we know that those shadows are parallel because they're being lit by the sun, but look how unparalleled they look. And when you take, something that's got depth to it and different elevation, and you're taking a photograph and it's being imprinted on like a 2D image, it will cause things that are parallel to look as if they are not parallel. And I think what you're hovering over there is an example. We know that those shadows are parallel, yet they don't look parallel. So I don't think it's a phenomenon that suggests that there had to be an extra source of light or anything like that. I think that picture there kind of explains it, really.
I would just add that the surface of the moon there's a lot of craters, a lot of elevation. It's probably could be quite easy for a shadow to look like it's one direction when it's not, because the ground beneath it has subsided. And I would also add that if there were more than one light source, then surely there'd be two shadows or three shadows.
Okay, so I take the height. If you are standing on different heights, okay, let's go to the second row now.
Okay.
So now this one is a bit faint. I just want to get one that is more protruded. So let me just and not taken with a wide lens camera. Okay, let's click on that one now. Sorry, people on auditory.
Don't worry.
But-
Everything that we're discussing, I'll be flashing up on the YouTube screen, and obviously the auditory ones will describe it as we can, best we can.
Yeah. So there you've got on the moon, you've got the actual spacecraft, and you've got a shadow at a certain angle, and then another shadow literally at the 45-degree angle to it. And the sun must be coming from the left.
And I don't know about
pushing out the boat a lot when it comes to from an angular point of view.
I don't know what you think on that one, Catz, but I would suggest that that's the position of the viewer is the reason that there's the angle of those shadows. Is that a fair comment?
I think so. I think, again, it's similar to the photograph that was on screen before.
I think
if you take something that's... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, if the viewer was stood in between those two yellow arrows in the middle, then they would see a shadow, both shadows moving away from their perspective, wouldn't they?
I think so. And like you said, there is only one shadow. You know, there's not, if there's multiple light sources, like a movie set, there would be more than one shadow. And the way that those lines have been drawn back, you know, to converge, they are converging at a point where certainly that diagram, there isn't a light source. I just think it's similar to that photograph we saw on Earth with the tree stumps. I just think that is the effect that sometimes you get when you're taking a photograph and taking a three-dimensional image and with depth and plotting it onto a two-dimensional piece of paper. You get parallel lines not looking parallel.
Yeah. What do you think, Karl?
Yeah, so, you know, this is where, again, it needs to go to court, because the film experts, they need to speak to a film expert, and they say for certain technical reasons it's not the case. So it's for a layman like myself, it's very, very difficult.
But you're happy that's a bit of a grey area, though?
Well, you know, if I look at that one, the one we've just looked at is difficult.
Yeah.
If I look at the one we looked at before, where we've got that lamp, I don't know where we had it, sort of a spotlight where they superimposed it. Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
That one to me is very, very fishy.
I would question the legitimacy of that photo. Would you, Catz?
That one there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does look a little bit odd. Where's that come from?
I don't recognise that as being an official photo. I could be wrong.
I mean, if it is, one of those shadows is way, 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 way longer than the other one, isn't it? And if they are stood so close, then there's obviously some kind of elevation change there, which is going to affect the way the shadows look.
Yeah, I would need to authenticate that photo, I think, before I commented on it more.
Yeah, and this comes back to the court case.
Sure.
Can I go on to the...
Yes, please do.
The next one. Okay, so no stars, moon landing. And images, yeah, I've clicked images. Okay, so what I've learned is that the moon is, from Earth, you always see the shiny side. So the back side of the moon, we never see. So
sure, synchronous rotation.
Okay, and then because the rotation is 27 days, at half of that, so 13.5 days in, the sun is directly on top of the moon. And at that point, it's 127 degrees Celsius. So for American listeners, that's 27 degrees above boiling point of water. And so they can only land on the moon, if for the layperson like myself, when it's sort of in the beginning of that 27-day period. Otherwise, it's going to be literally too warm, especially 50 years ago. Otherwise, they would have had air conditioning and all this kind of thing.
Yeah, so they're landing in a kind of a dusk dawn sort of zone on the moon, aren't they?
Yeah. Now, all these photos, and please sort of help me with this, is done on there's no spotlight obviously in the moon, so there's got to be sun. So it's, as you say, dusk or dawn. So why is there no? If we're going to look later on the Mars Perseverance,
yeah,
you can see the sunlight. You can see the sun on the moon, and then you can see behind it sunlight. So there's two problems for me as a layperson. First of all, that darkness in the background, which is just pure black.
Mm-hmm.
If it was pure black, it should have had stars in it, because I understand the moon is in a vacuum, there's no atmosphere, so therefore it either has to have stars in it, and very bright, like scattered stars, as you can see if there's no atmosphere somewhere. But in my view, that should be sunlight, as we're going to see in the Mars Perseverance chat a bit later.
How familiar are you with cameras like DSLR cameras? And
I'm not a camera expert at all.
Okay, so do you know things like aperture and shutter speed and stuff like that?
Yes, I know. Yeah.
So I from what I've read about the photos taken on the moon, the shutter speed had to be pretty quick because it was quite bright on the moon's surface. I believe it was 1/15th or 1/25th of a second, maybe. At that sort of exposure, you're not going to pick out any stars, especially when the moon is as bright as it is in the foreground. If you wanted to get this exposure for the stars, you'd have to have the shutter open a lot longer, in which case I'd imagine it would just be just whiteness, because the brightness from the moon would be too much for the camera. Would you be happy with that, Catz, as an explanation for that?
Yeah, that's what I've seen that explained a few times. Yeah, it's just the exposure settings of the camera, and I've seen people on Earth replicate that.
Yes.
On a night, going out and taking photographs of the moon from Earth. Filming the moon, seeing the stars in the background, and then taking a photograph where the stars are not visible. Replicating the same setting. So I think that's on YouTube on a few sort of like debunking sites.
And just to go slightly further, Karl, I sometimes take photos of stars. If I have a relatively quick shutter speed, they will look fairly dim and reasonably the same color. If I keep the camera dead still, even on a motor, and open the shutter for a minute or even 2 minutes, the stars will be different colors. They'll be really bright. They'll stand out against the darkness of space. So it definitely has something to do, the fact there's no stars, with that camera, the way the photo was taken.
So just say, so that is when we look at it from a blackness, but I believe that should be all sunlight in the background. Is that also still to do with the shutter speed?
No, that would probably be due down to the fact there's no atmosphere on the moon, and therefore the light can't be scattered by the atmosphere like it is here on Earth. That's how I would. There is an atmosphere, but it's extremely tenuous, isn't it, Catz? There's nothing, hardly anything. So there's nothing for the light to scatter the light on the surface of the moon. So here on Earth, obviously, we've got a thick atmosphere. It scatters the light, and we see the blue sky or the red sunsets or whatever.
But apart from Earth, that's got 4 stratospheres, and then Mars, I understand. So the moon everything else is in a vacuum.
Yes.
So how come when we look at anything, we can see the sunlight behind it? So we can see the stars in the sun. When the sun is out, you can see the sun. It's not dark. So that sort of baffles me a little bit.
So the sunlight, as it comes through the atmosphere, I don't know if you're familiar with something called Rayleigh scattering. Our atmosphere is made up of a lot of nitrogen. It's the nitrogen in the atmosphere that, as the sunlight comes through it, it literally, imagine, smashing a billiard table, all the balls flying everywhere. The nitrogen in the atmosphere is essentially doing that to the sunlight as it comes through, and it's bouncing it around and scattering it in all directions down to us, which means that, the sun can be up there right ahead of you, but light from the sun that is traveling maybe all the way over there is being scattered by the nitrogen back to your eyes in that blue wavelength. And that's what gives the illusion that the atmosphere is kind of being illuminated. And
I believe,
because there is no...
sorry, Catz, I interrupted you there, but I was going to say, I believe Mars has about 3% nitrogen in its atmosphere, which is why you still get that scattering effect on Mars as well.
I wonder if that, because it's the nitrogen that causes it's the blue wavelengths it scatters more, and I wonder if there's less. That's why it's not as not as blue, perhaps.
Yeah.
But because there is none of that on the moon, there's nothing for that light to scatter off around. So you would expect, in my opinion, to see nothing but black.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, because of time, could we move on
Sure.
to the
Yeah.
shadows length moon landing images?
We're back on the shadows.
So we're back on the shadows, but now more linked to length. So if you look at that photo over there, two people on the same height next to each other. Why is the other ones and the sun can only come from one direction? Why is the one shadow much longer than the other shadow?
I would argue that it's not that much longer. I would argue that's probably what you'd expect to see. Don't know, Catz, what do you think?
Yes, I'd say the difference isn't massive, but do we know, how is one of them stood slightly higher than the other one? Is there a slight elevation change? I do understand what you're saying.
That's the difficult thing, isn't it? Knowing exactly where they're positioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see anything that this should be impossible.
I'm just trying to see if there's another example of two people close to each other, the same height. That seems to be the old one.
Yeah.
You see, for me, if they seems like the same height, they're very close to each other. Surely the sun comes from millions of years ago. That shadow should be within minute millimeters of each other, like exactly nearly the same.
But that picture you're hovering over there, sorry.
No, sorry.
Go on, Catz.
So that bit, sorry, I didn't mean to. That picture you're hovering over there, the guy on the right looks very, very clear to me, like he's stood in some kind of ditch. It looks like he's certainly. I mean, just look at the position of the feet. He looks like he's certainly stood lower.
And also
than the other guy.
Also, the guy on the left, his knees are slightly bent as well, aren't they? You can see. So maybe he's slightly like smaller in height. Also, the sun would probably by the looks of it, quite near the horizon, so you'd expect those really long shadows as well.
Yeah, sorry, Karl, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Horizon moon landing is the last one.
Okay, cool.
And the issue is what the experts say that says the moon landing in place. They say with the horizon, you see, you'll see the moon, and then but you can always see the end of the horizon, and that doesn't happen in nature. So you can look at all these photos, you can always see clearly the end of the horizon with your. And when we're going to look at the Mars Perseverance, you can see that doesn't take place. You see the immediate forefront, and then you see the horizon right after that.
Okay. I mean, I would put that down to a couple of things. One, again, being the fact there's no atmosphere to refract any light down close near the horizon, which you'd expect here on Earth and on Mars. And two, I'd put that down to the fact that the moon is a lot smaller than Earth. Therefore, the horizon would be closer. What do you think, Catz?
I can buy the first one. The second one I can't buy because the moon will still be massive. It's because all these photos you can really see the end. It's close by. You can see they're not. You're talking about 100, 200 meters.
Okay.
On the Earth,
that's my view as a
sure.
You're looking on Earth at the horizon being about 3 miles away, aren't you, from normal standing position? And I mean, how many times bigger? I forget now. How many times?
It's about 4, isn't
bigger,
it? About 4 times.
4 times bigger. Yeah. So you are looking at less than a mile away for the horizon, aren't you?
Karl, sorry, Catz, to interrupt you. Out of curiosity, Karl, the Apollo 11, where you can see the Earth, the ASU University one. Are you aware? You're happy that that's taken from orbit? That photo.
Sorry, what
So
photo?
one to the right, down,
On the first.
down,
Yeah.
that right, that one there. That's it.
Yes.
Are you happy that one's taken from orbit?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's Earth.
No, from
yes.
from orbit around the moon.
Yes.
You're happy with that? Yeah. Okay. Cool. I didn't know if you were.
Well, I'm not saying no. I'm saying. So what the film expert says is this is all shot in the studio.
Yeah.
So,
okay. But the narrative. Well, don't say the narrative, but this photo was taken by Michael Collins as he was orbiting the moon, whilst the other two were on the surface. So he's going to be higher up, isn't he, in elevation when he's taking that photo?
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm seeing. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But,
I didn't know if you were limited it to that, but or if you included ones on the surface as well.
Sorry, just for me to understand. So this one is on the moon, and that's the Earth.
Yep.
The distance. So what is the difference between this one and say this one?
Possibly that you're zooming in a bit more on the Earth on that one, or the way you're taking the shot. So it's I can make the moon look small and big with my camera. So.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the end of my sharing.
Okay.
So if
cool.
I can just click here, stop share.
And you got a couple of videos you want us to watch, haven't you?
Yes. So I just want to see if we covered that. So the first one is the Mars Perseverance. It's just a 2-minute clip.
Okay, doke.
And it's again with the horizon. And perhaps if you could just sort of comment on that. So that's not the first pictures that came through recently. It's the one that came through secondly.
Okay, bear with me a second. I
know you say the moon is smaller, but you can the horizon to me is just looks completely different.
Okay, 2 seconds. I've got some because I've got this is a new computer. I need to change the settings on sharing things. So give me a second. Oh, don't want to do that. There we go. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
You happy with that? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Fortunately, you're going to have to click on the right and just skip ad.
Can you hear it?
I can just about hear it.
Better?
Oh yeah, this one hasn't got sound. Sorry, this one hasn't got sound. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's all right. Oh, it's coming through my end, so it'll be on the actual podcast, which is good. So we got images here of the Perseverance rover on Mars. Yes.
That's it.
Okay.
So very shortly, it's going to start showing the horizon.
Right.
I don't think you need to forward. I think it's going to happen pretty soon.
Okay. And nice shots anyway. I like looking at them.
So there you go. So you can see.
Right, I'm going to pause that there. Let's go back to there. There we go. Okay, go on.
So this is actually that just repeats itself. So this to me is like the immediate horizon. So you can see this. It's similar to the moon.
Yep.
Then you've always got the horizon behind that. That's
sure.
Very far in the distance. I would say not 3 miles, but like could be 20, 50 miles. I don't know how long you can see, but much, much further.
I mean, I would put that down to the fact that it landed in a crater. What do you think, Catz?
Yeah, because you are going to have the lip of the crater, aren't you? Before it's not, it's already sunk quite low, isn't it?
And it was a big crater, wasn't it, that it landed in? It wasn't like a tiny. It was quite a fairly large crater.
And I don't think the fisheye lens helps
judge
distance too much. I think that first lip of the crater is a lot closer than you'd imagine.
Yeah. I would say that's the reason, Karl, for that one. The difference is the fact that it's in a crater.
Yeah, no, that could be the case. Okay, the next one is the famous Van Allen radiation belt.
Ah, okay.
And so the YouTube clip, it's about 5 minutes. I'm very keen on that one for nearly the full 5 minutes.
Okay, let me just figure out here. I've lost my... I don't know what I'm doing, do I? Look at this. What's going on with Zoom here? There we go. Where's my chat? There it is. Right, got it. This is the next one down, yeah?
In this video, we're going to discuss yet another question, one of many. And this one has to do with the Van Allen radiation belt. And this is a donut-shaped protective layer around the Earth. There's two, actually. Let me bring up this diagram. There's an outer radiation belt and an inner radiation belt. So you notice that two really, what I would determine to be impenetrable layers. So that's something actually that NASA has on their website. NASA Van Allen probes spot and an impenetrable barrier in space. So talking about the Van Allen belts there. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because we supposedly landed on the moon, and here is the range right here from July 16th, 1969 to December 7th, 1972. Now, the very interesting thing about this is there's an Orion mission, an Orion spacecraft mission to take people to Mars. So there's the flight test. Now, this is scheduled to happen over the next few years. They're going in stages. They claim to be going in stages, but there's an interesting video that I saw that promoted this Orion mission, and I'm going to bring that up right now. Very interesting. Right at the end, actually, is where this scientist really just kind of blows my mind, and I don't understand what he's trying to say.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts.
All right, you see it says high radiation right there. So I'm going to continue to play it.
We'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on our...
I want you to really pay attention to that. All the stuff that the radiation belts can harm, talking about that, as well as human life.
Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I'm going to back that up. I know the audio is a little bit loud, bear with me, but listen to this part.
Before we send people through this region of space.
Wait a minute. Back it up.
So basically,
before we send people through this region of space.
Okay.
So we can stop that now. So my comment there is NASA is now struggling to get the Mars, to work out how they could put man and women onto the Mars through the Van Allen belt, figuring out how they're going to do it 50 years after it was done. How come?
I think that's bad writing from the NASA the NASA media guys, for one. And I don't know, what do you think, Catz? I think that in terms of the Van Allen belt radiation, going through it, from what I've seen and read, is the equivalent of about 10 or 15 flights in an airplane in one go.
Yeah, I think the original moon mission, it bypassed the inner belts, didn't it? And it went through a very thin section of the outer belt. And I think it showed that they received less radiation from that than a typical sort of like somebody who works in a nuclear power plant or with radioactive substances would during a year.
Yeah.
And I think, but it's about it's about eliminating risk. You wouldn't put something in orbit through the Van Allen belts. You know, it's going to be so sitting in all the time. And it is about eliminating risk, but it was a risky thing to have done.
Yeah, and they were in a race, weren't they? Let's not mess around. They were in a race.
Is it possible to take the image off so we can see each other?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Well, my question on that is, you say, and that's what I've heard as well, that NASA just hit it at the shadow or something back 50 years ago. So why is NASA not doing it now for Mars as well? Why are they struggling with it? Why don't they go through that same thin layer?
Well, I don't think personally that they are struggling. You know, I think that when you're communicating science and you're communicating what they're doing in these missions, you know, we want to give a realistic image of what's happening. The Van Allen belts are a real thing and they're out there, and it's good to discuss that they're out there. But the fact that they're discussing them and the potential dangers that they've got doesn't mean that they think it's an impenetrable barrier that they can't get through. You know, if they didn't mention them, you know, they wouldn't be educating us or, you know, communicating the science in the way that perhaps we'd like them to. But I don't think just because they mention it, it means it's some kind of huge problem that's going to stop us going to Mars.
I would also say as well on that front that I think the risk back for Apollo 11 and those flights is not an acceptable risk today. I don't believe they would take those sorts of risks today in space flight that they did back then. So they want to be completely sure that everything is protected and everyone is protected as much as possible.
Okay. So can I go on to von Braun?
Yes. Is this the third one, is it?
No, we're not on the third one yet. So just discussing things.
Oh, okay, cool.
So Werner von Braun was in charge of the V2 rockets in Germany.
Okay.
In the Second World War, as you know. And he was in charge of, over the total period that he was there, and we're going to see a video right at the end, of killing 20,000 Jews, according to certain people that we're going to see people say that. In fact, they hanged 5 people in front of the center every day, killed 5 people. Then you got the paperclip things where the Russia and the US divided the scientists of the V2 bombs up of the Germans, and von Braun got sent to the US, and he was very influential in the the rocket. So, you know, I believe as others that the rockets did go up, but they never actually went further to the moon. Up to 2 years ago, I was in the construction industry in the UK, and I've actually, one of my topics is on fraud in the UK construction industry. And 50 years ago, so after Kennedy announced that the moon landing is going to take place, it had to just take place because of Russia and the competition of Russia. But it was billions and billions of dollars of going to contracts to private firms and so forth. And I think the Braun envelopes 50 years ago, compared to what I see in the construction industry now, would have been huge. So von Braun is bad karma for NASA, that they actually put a SS and a Nazi using both. But the clip at the end is going to show more. So the next one is 6 Apollo missions, 1969 to 1972. Why did they stop? So that is that girl asking the astronauts, why did they stop?
Is that the third one? Is it?
No. We're not on that third one yet.
Oh, sorry.
So that links into the lunar probes. I won't pull it up now.
Okay.
But after 72, you've had hundreds of probes from NASA, Russia initially, then later on India, Japan, the European. Why haven't they gone back for the last 50 odd years? Why are they sending all these probes and probes and probes? Surely, if you've done it 50 years ago, you'll just go mine. You'll just send it back. Why are they only now planning to go back in 2024?
Okay, couple of things from me, and then I'll see what Cat's got to say. First off, the von Braun thing. I don't believe that the history of the von Braun, although I don't know all of it, I know some of it. I don't believe that any of that history has any influence on what happened with NASA after that point. He could have been riding unicorns that pooped Coca-Cola. I wouldn't have cared if he'd got if he was influential in getting people to the moon, then he was influential in getting people to the moon. I know you said it's bad karma and everything, but I don't believe it has a relevance into whether or not it happened. The why haven't we gone back issue, I would say, is 90% financial. The budget for NASA is extremely small now compared to what it was when they went. I think it's 0.5% of the official national budget. When they went to the moon, it was more like 4 or 5%. And I think sending people that far costs a lot of money. What do you think, Catz?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if we'd have been going back to the moon constantly. It would have been amazing. But they had to push, like Dan said, their budget to about 5% of the economy to do that, and that's not sustainable. Just not for £1 in every 20 to be going constantly to just sending people to the moon, when really there's no financial benefit, or there's no you're not going to recoup that. It's just all for kudos. They won the space race. Now let's focus on things closer to home. But it's good that they decided to go back. Yeah, I think.
But if you spend, it's a bit like the electric cars now. Electric cars costing a lot more now, because the car companies have to. The first car they build cost billions, millions and millions and billions. And then, well, certainly for the car industry, all the car companies is costing billions and billions for the first car. But then over the next 20 years, they will recoup that money. So to me, it just doesn't make sense. You spend all the billions, you get to the moon, and you can start mining. I understand helium-3 is on the moon that they could use to go to Mars. It's a good source of energy. And you spent that huge amount of money on the perfecting it. And now to really send, to send the rockets up will be a small percentage of that initial outlay. It's all done. It's so 50 years ago you had it done, and then they just stopped. And the money is the real money. The 90% of it would have been spent. So now you're actually getting to the next 50 years of cheaper, or the next 10 years, say the same crafts, and then you just stop suddenly.
I think no, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. And technology moves on, doesn't it? As technologies advance, etc. I don't think it's fair to say that we could. I think what you're saying is build on the back of the technology that they used. I suppose that's what you're saying. And maybe if you think about it like this, if you had like a Morris Minor, which was a fantastic car, and it was beautiful, it was absolutely great, but you wanted to improve taxi service in London, you wouldn't say, well, we've got our fleet of Morris Minors or whatever. They're great cars. They're outdated. They're not as good as what we can build today. We wouldn't put our efforts into maintaining that. We design new and better. And, it's that when they say, we don't have that technology anymore, what they mean is that technology is outdated. There's no point in putting all our funds into that when we can create something far better from scratch now. Yeah.
And
that's my take.
And the funds is obviously, I mean, we got to remember right now as we speak, NASA don't have a launch vehicle. They don't have one. So the finances are obviously a massive part of it. The Saturn V is the most powerful rocket ever built and still is. And that costs a huge amount of money. And there's a reason why they don't have a launch vehicle at the moment. And they're using SpaceX and other companies.
Yeah, but once you've got that Morris Minor, and you can use that for the next 10 years. You don't have to build a Mercedes-Benz straight. There's now Mercedes-Benz they can build. They've done it, they've perfected it. So you spent 90% of the big money in. That's always the case. That initial prototype and getting it up there so many years. But I take your points. So is it possible to go to that Empire News? Actually, can I share this clip? Because I want to, so I'll share the third one.
Sure,
and
okay.
The reason being is I just want to read it, and it's a little bit small where it is there.
Okay, go for it.
So I'm just going to put that in there. So the main newspapers don't want to publish, why is this happening?
That's just an advert. Just
oops. How can I get our photos is above that, so I want to get rid of that. That's terrible. So a lot of the main newspapers don't want to publish anything, and
Okay.
I'm told that they're afraid of NASA and the government. But if this is true, this is Empire News. So I'm just going to read. NASA officials today admitted what many conspiracy theorists have been claiming for years, that man never walked on Moon. Chief scientist Alan Anderson said that the lunar landing hoax had gone long enough, and it was becoming ridiculous to keep claiming that men have been to the Moon. You have to understand, NASA was under a lot of pressure when President Kennedy promised nation that he'll put man on the Moon. Before the Ruskies and space technology scientist Alan Anderson, we told him it was impossible. So he knew it had to be faked. So I'll go off that. Shucks, terrible. How can I stop share? Yeah. So 2 points I've got there.
Yep.
One is that a NASA scientist saying that? And if it's so, then wow. And the second point is, if it is true, blaming Nixon. Nixon was assassinated in 1963, and the Apollo missions went on to, as we know, the last one, 1972, so another 9 years. And in that 9 years, there would have been a huge incentive financially. That's my gut feeling for this to go along. I believe, like the others, the people that believe that the truth is not out there, that it was big business. They knew they couldn't do it. It's pride with the Russians, and the money, the brown envelopes, was too tempting.
Okay. Yeah. So I think you're right. First off, you'd have to corroborate the source of that article. And secondly, I think there's a couple of things I want to say. First is you talked about Russia there, and you can put China in the mix as well. I'm sure they would have taken any opportunity possible to claim that the US faked it. They would have had. I'm sure they would have had a keen eye on the situation. And secondly, we did a podcast with a guy called Michael Butter about, I think it was about episode 7 or 8, and he wrote a book on conspiracy theories, and he mentioned a mathematician who figured out that all the people involved with the moon landing, every single person who built things, who were management, whatever, that if they all kept this secret about the moon landing, that statistically it would have been leaked after 4 years because of the amount of people. Which obviously nothing has happened on that front. So I don't know, Catz, what do you think on that?
No, I think you're right. But going back to corroborating the source of that, I mean, I never heard of Empire News, but obviously I saw the link on the screen while you were displaying it, and I've gone to empirenews.net, and there are some stories. I think it kind of shows what kind of a website there are. The headline on the first page is Michelle Obama files for divorce after Barack Obama admits he's gay.
Oh dear.
The second one is Jeffrey Epstein spotted alive and well.
Yeah.
And President Trump. It's a satire.
Yeah. Okay.
Site.
Okay. So the source isn't great, but I think your point, you still have a point off the back of it, don't you? That about the secret being kept and all things like that, don't you?
Yeah. Well, on that point, I believe that it would have been 2 or 3 people handing it, and then obviously you had to have the crew in the studio that the film experts believe was somewhere in America, most probably a dome-shaped industrial sort of factory or something.
Okay.
And then you would have had those people. So it wouldn't have been the total NASA. And those people would have known that if they said anything, so it was probably 100 people, say,
okay,
so it wouldn't be the total NASA, and they would have known if they whispered a word, it's the end of their life, basically.
Right. But what about deathbed confessions? You'd expect that, wouldn't you? If it was on someone's conscience, and if they were scared of NASA or whatever, and they were about to die anyway, do you not think that something like that would have happened? Possibly.
Possibly, yeah. That's an interesting one.
That's how That's how I see that one personally.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's not a. That to me is more plausible than that statistical one.
Yeah.
Because I think it would have been a small group. Okay, so the final one,
cool.
I know time is a big issue for you.
That's all right.
Is Bonnie, which is the secretary of this chappie from Braun. It's about 10 minutes, but it's only the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yep.
And then that's the concluding bit. No, it's not that site. Empire. It's the last one.
The last one. Got it. Yeah.
Are you Bonnie?
This is Bonnie today. And this is Bonnie 20 years ago when she was von Braun's NASA secretary. Together we walk over to the library where she keeps her personal collection of von Braun memorabilia.
This is Mrs. von Braun, Dr. von Braun, and this is me. This is the exploration of Mars. I typed this manuscript back in the early 50s for Dr. von Braun to Bonnie Holmes. They say we have hitched our wagon to a star, but say, isn't that road bumpy? Affectionately, Werner von Braun. Looking back, I guess you would say he was handsome. I read an article recently that said Werner von Braun with his movie star good looks. It never occurred to me that he had movie star good looks, but looking back at some of these pictures, I guess he did.
He's a very handsome man. Were you ever tempted to have an affair with him?
Oh, no, we didn't have time to even think about it. But he was a married man and I was a married woman, and no, it never occurred to me. There's Dr. von Braun and President Johnson. Here's a good picture of President Kennedy and Dr. von Braun. Liked President Kennedy very much. He admired him. In fact, he had an invitation, he and Mrs. von Braun had an invitation to join them for dinner. The dinner was supposed to be the day after he was buried. Everybody knew what that big B was. Anyone who got a note that had that B on it knew automatically that that was from Dr. von Braun. Everybody recognized that.
Later on, I discovered von Braun's initial on this Nazi document, which directly ties him to the management of slave labor during World War II. His full signature can be found on this Nazi document, provided to me by the German government, in which he requests labor, including prisoners, for his rocket factory in central Germany. And finally, I found Werner's signature on this 1969 NASA letter, sent to an official 2 weeks after the Apollo mission, in which he admits being a member of Hitler's SS. And to quote him, "I would appreciate it if you kept this information to yourself, as I think it could only harm my work at NASA if all this were given undue publicity." The Nazi program occurred in two places: development on the Baltic coast at Peenemünde, and manufacturing at the Metalwork rocket factory here in central Germany. Inside these hills, in giant underground tunnels, 10,000 slaves worked at once building von Braun's V-2 rockets. Over 60,000 slaves passed through these tunnels. 20,000 of them died here. This is actual footage of the rocket workers, shot by the United States Army in 1945.
This document implicates von Braun in the movement of concentration camp labor from Buchenwald to Dora.
Mike Neufeld is the curator of World War II history at the Smithsonian.
You can see on it his signature initial B in his characteristic hand. In the last paragraph of the document, he talks about getting certain privileges granted to this French physics professor, such as wearing civilian clothes instead of prisoner uniform, in order to increase his enthusiasm for doing independent work. By the fact that he was in Buchenwald and talked to the camp commandant implicates him in the use of concentration camp labor in a way that no other existing document does.
Nazis building our moon spaceship? I had never heard of anything like this before.
Hi, Alex. How are you doing?
Very good, and you?
Great.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Come on in.
Sure.
Alex Baum was a slave at the rocket factory and amazingly enough survived, even after being forced to actually dig these huge tunnels.
We never saw daylight till the tunnel was finished and they brought us up. The first time we went out of the tunnel, we were like a bunch of blind men. We couldn't even see because we never had seen light for months and months and months. I'll go get my stuff for you. I'm gonna go. This is my number in Buchenwald and Dora.
And because they didn't think you were Jewish, you did not have a tattoo. Instead, you had a
No,
patch.
that's right, yeah.
If you were Jewish, it would have been tattooed.
Tattooed.
Did you ever see Werner von Braun at the rocket camp?
Yes, we all saw. I mean, anybody who was at the rocket camp saw von Braun, we saw Himmler, we even saw Goering in Peenemünde. That's the only time I saw him there. They used to hang 5 people a day in the entrance of the tunnel. I mean, who wants to see thousands of bodies, skeleton? I mean, that's all we were, skeleton bodies. They didn't bother burying or anything. Like I say, you become bestial. It's like the president of a big corporation not being punished if slave labor is working in their factory.
I nominated him for the International Boss of the Year, and he won it. Because he was truly the boss of the year.
It's like a mass murder letting him loose because he invented something. You wouldn't do that in this country. You would still be in jail. You would still be. So, what can you do?
What would have happened to Werner von Braun if he were still alive today? Behind armed guards work America's Nazi hunters, the United States Justice Department's Criminal Division.
Some of the key individuals responsible for the great accomplishment of Apollo 11, the landing of human beings on the moon, were deeply involved in Nazi crimes during World War II. This isn't just guilt by association. It's not just that some of them were in the SS or the Nazi Party. They were personally complicit in Nazi crimes.
Arthur Rudolph was Werner von Braun's head of rocket manufacturing under both Adolf Hitler and John F. Kennedy. The Justice Department brought war crime charges against him.
But Rudolph was very much a de facto deportation. He was removed unceremoniously from the United States, and the Justice Department exposed him for what he was.
Which was?
Which was a Nazi criminal. Unfortunately, von Braun died before the U.S. government belatedly in 1979 created this office and seriously undertook to investigate Nazis living in the United States. Had he still been alive, there is no doubt that he would have become a major subject of federal investigation.
Yep, so that's as far. So your view on that?
Catz, do you got anything on that?
I mean, nobody's going to doubt there were absolutely horrendous atrocities carried out in the war. And I just fail to see the link to anything to do with the moon landing. From that, I'm a little bit confused about what the link is meant to be. I mean, if you tell me he was a bad person, or I'm not a historian, I wouldn't dispute that, but I'm not sure how that links at all to the moon landing.
Well, the link to me is that the brown envelopes. You can imagine if a guy was in charge of killing 20,000 Jews, hanging 5 people per day, completely unscrupulous. He'll do anything. That's a massive link.
I don't think that him on his own would be capable of orchestrating moon landing hoax from the top, just because there's evidence that he's a bad person. I don't think he would have anywhere near the amount of influence needed to do that.
Sorry, mate. I've read a little bit. I've read a little bit about him. I'm just going to postulate something to you, Karl, and then you can tell me what you think afterwards. So, if you're a scientist and you have a passion for your work, which in this case is rockets and the creation of them, and you're drafted in during a time of war by the Nazis to build these rockets, and you want to just do what you want to do. You want to do your scientific work. You have a passion for it. So you're drafted in and you sign all the forms and you do what you're told and you produce these rockets. And then once the war is over, another organization comes along and wants to give you money to continue doing the work that you love. And you probably didn't really like what you were doing. The people you were working for before you didn't really like. So you thought, yep, this is a great opportunity over in America. I'm going to take it to carry on doing the work that I love. Is that completely implausible, that scenario?
My view is that if you're in the Nazi and SS and you in charge of a rocket factory of killing 20,000 people, that's sort of nearly it's sort of not disputed. You are guilty.
Okay.
And so I unfortunately, personally, I can't buy that.
Okay. If you're in charge of that factory with the 20,000 people, do you own it? Are you the man at the top telling who owns that factory, who employs those 20,000 people? If you're there in charge of it, if you're there running it, are you the main man? That's what I'm saying. If you're running that factory, or are you doing it on the back of someone say so?
I think you're the main man. Okay. It comes back to people in charge of concentration camps, and the horrific things that happened there. The people, unfortunately, did terrible things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So let's compare it to George Floyd. Now, maybe a bad comparison, but maybe it is a good one. Those police cops, in my view, I've been looking at all of the trial now so far, but we'll see the defense in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Those police, especially that Denier guy, is completely guilty of killing someone. And, you can be in charge of something, but it's how you do it. So when Braun, he's got blood on his hands, and
I don't argue that fact at all. I just wonder if it was under duress. That's all.
Yeah, well, I'm just referring to the George Floyd things. There's certain ways you can do things, and I think when you look at the concentration camps, there was some people that, most of those guys were very hungry to kill Jews. So the whole thing started very badly, and I think a guy like von Braun, that was seen in that clip, you can see him with John F. Kennedy. He was one of the main guys.
Yeah.
To have had him in charge there, I think all of the kind of things could have happened, and very easily the thing could have been faked once they knew that they couldn't do it, and once they knew that they wanted to carry on. And for the last person you can blame is Kennedy, if anyone is blaming him.
Yeah.
But the last thing I would like to say from my side is, I think we're going to find out in the next 3 years who's right. The spirit world has said to me, it never took place, so let's see in the next 3 years. It's going to be interesting 3 years.
Cool. So April 2024. I'll be in touch then, and we'll chat definitely. Anyway, Karl, thank you so much for the chat. It's been fascinating. I don't know about you, Catz, but I've loved talking about this sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's been great.
Honestly, really, really enjoyed hearing your thoughts and opinions on it all. But that's it. We're done this week. Next week, we are going to have, I haven't told you this yet, Catz, we're going to have Casual Spaceman on, and he's going to talk a little bit more in depth about what we talked about here, and it could be a nice opposing view. So we'll get him on. Should be good fun. But we are done. Thank you so much, Karl. Thank you so much, Catz, for joining us. And we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.